Well, it sounds like Dave got the information into the chat room, and that's how you got here without any problem. And it looks like those of you who did have the wrong link or got an email talking about the wrong link, you got here. So that's awesome. I'm glad people are getting here. We are going to kind of roll into this slowly so people can get in. But while we're rolling into this slowly, Britton's job, for those of you who weren't here earlier, Britton, introduce yourself again.
Hi, I'm Britton Platt. I'm going to be the moderator for today.
Britton is my son, and he is currently in college, and he's quite a talented video editor. So he does a lot of video editing for me, and a lot of the stuff that we did on the Lightroom Summit, he was the one that rolled it out. So you actually know his work because you saw his trimming and cutting that, because I was long-winded. So am I long-winded, Britton?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, that I could have, the summit, I could have done probably, how long was the longest class, Britton?
Before editing?
Yeah, before we cut it down.
3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours. So I could have done 3 hours, and I would have left 3 hours in there, or 2 hours, or whatever. But Dave is a taskmaster, and he won't let us. He won't let us go over 45 or 50 minutes. I always push it. I think I was at 55 on most of them, so I'm always pushing the envelope because I'm trying to, give you as much as possible. But I am long-winded, and I have many things to teach you. So this is why I like the Q&A, because I can tell you more. Plus, there were some things that I couldn't tell you during the summit, which kind of drove me nuts, because I was teaching you classes on like metadata, and I knew that there was something cool coming out, and I couldn't tell you about it. that was hard. That was like I had a hard time not trying to tell you more information than I could. So, but I get to tell all of it to you today, and you probably know some of it. So you've probably actually gotten a little bit of drips and drabs of what's in the new version of Lightroom that just got released on June 17th, my birthday. So June 17th was the release of the new version of Lightroom. I think it's 0.4 release, 15.4, something like that. Anyway, so that is it's got quite a few really good things in it, but there's only one thing that really matters in that release, and we'll talk about it here in a bit. So pipe in the chat, tell us where you're from, and as we begin, Britton's going to be looking for questions. So if you were at the summit and you had a question, well, obviously you were at the summit, but if you have a question from the summit that is just burning in your head, go ahead and start asking them now, because the more we can get those questions ahead of time, the more Britton can kind of siphon through them and find them and shout them out to me. So that's what he's doing here today, is he's just going to be looking through your questions. So start asking your questions, anything that you have. I'll answer some of them right up front, and then once we have given it a few minutes, I think I think at like 5:10 or something like that, I will stop answering questions, and I'll give you some stuff that I want to give you, information-wise, and then we'll start answering some questions again. So this is literally a Q&A. So I'm happy to stay here and answer questions for the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we end up doing. So as long as you have questions, I have answers. But right now, start asking your questions, and then at about 5:10, I'll start presenting some stuff to you that I think that you will be really excited about, that I'm really excited about, and hope you are. So any questions coming in, Britton? Just
nothing quite yet. Just a comment from Barry saying something about how Adobe has pulled back 15.4. but I don't know if that's completely accurate quite yet or not. I'm not sure.
I don't think they've pulled it back because I just updated another one of my computers this morning. So we can actually check that. So no, it's 15.4.1 now. So there was an actual release. So June 17th, there was a release of 15.4. And then there's another release that just happened maybe last night or yesterday or the day before. That was 15.4.1 because there were some bugs or something and they fixed them. So 15.4.1 is the current release of Lightroom Classic. And then the current release of Lightroom Desktop is 9.4. So if you go to your About Lightroom and check on those, make sure you're on the latest update. It is interesting, and you should know this, that Adobe, when they release something, they release it in stages because they don't want to have, all million users or whatever have problems right at the same time. And so they release like sections. And so they'll do like all of one country for, and just see if there's any problems. And then they'll do like a bigger release, and then they'll do a huge release. So they kind of stage it so that they can see if there's any immediate problems that happen. If you don't see, like if you don't go and reset or refresh your Adobe app, the Creative Cloud app, if you refresh it and you don't see that there's a 15.4.1, then maybe just keep trying and refreshing, and maybe tomorrow morning it would come up. But I would think it's there because I think it's been there for like 2 days or a day and a half or something. So,
All right, we have our first question
what's that?
from Sally J. Berry. She says, I changed my file names on import, been importing directly into LRC, Lightroom Classic, from my camera card. If I drag my card files to an external drive instead, then add to Lightroom Classic, can I still rename the files?
Yeah, the beauty of Lightroom Classic is that it allows you to rename your files at any stage in the game. So, for instance, what you're doing right now is you are importing your images through the import dialog box. And I'm going to actually go to that so that people can see this. So if you're in the import dialog box, and for those of you who are not certain exactly what the question was, if I go to any folder, and I'm just going to go to a job here. Okay, so if I go to any folder, any set of images, this is where they're coming from, over here on the left-hand side from this folder. And then up here on the top is where you can import and choose what kind of import you're doing. Are you going to copy it as a DNG? If you're copying it, you can certainly change the name on the way in. You can move them, you can add them. If you add them, you're not really changing the name because you're just taking whatever's on the hard drive and you're just referencing it and it's coming into the system. But if you move or copy, you can certainly change the names, and then that name change happens over here. So if I were to go and say I'm going to copy these, say as DNGs, then as I come in, you can see that there's a file renaming option on the right-hand side as you bring them in. Okay, so that's what, who was it that asked the question?
Sally.
Sally. So that's what Sally has been doing, is she's been plugging in her card, and then she's been copying them from the card. So she keeps them on the card, which is nice. It's a backup, and then they're coming in through Lightroom and they're getting renamed on the way in. I think that's actually a bad way to do it. It's not bad that you go from the card to the computer directly into Lightroom and you have this copy. That's not a bad thing. But renaming on the way in is not necessarily a great thing. And I'll tell you why. Because you're taking images, say 1 through 20, and you're importing them and you're changing the name. And then when you get into the system, if there's a glitch on one of those or one of them is corrupted or something like that, now you have to try and figure out this new naming structure, and these are 1 through 20, and this one's like 20 through 80, well, 20 through 40. So if you renamed them, then you have to figure out what one is number 12. Okay, now I got to go find this one and see which one it is because it's no longer number 12. So I would rather just bring in whatever images I have, bring them into Lightroom, go through and select them and adjust them and do all the work on them. And then when I have my final images, the ones that I'm keeping, because I've kind of shed images as I went along, first in the first culling process, and then sometimes as I'm adjusting them, I realize I can't do anything with this one, or it's a little softer than I like. So I reject it and I get rid of it. So I'm paring down, and by the time I get to the final set of images, the selects, it's, you know, maybe 1/5 or 1/10 of the original images that I shot. And so I just want to rename those, and I'll rename them 1 through 20 or 1 through 80 or however many there are. And that's when you rename. I wouldn't rename them on the way in because now you have a duplicate or a backup on the card that's not the same name. So that's my opinion on that matter, is rename afterwards. There's no reason to rename. However, in answer to your question, if I, instead of copying them, if I just add them and I bring them into the system, so this is where they're coming from over here. And hold on, let me turn on my little mouse thing so that you can see. There, now you can see where my mouse is because of the little purple circle. So you can see they're coming in from the Butterfly Collective job over here. They're being added. So that means nothing's changing about them. It just knows they're over here, and it's going to point to them, and it's going to bring in the information about them, but they're still going to sit on the same place. And then when they come over here, notice there's no renaming because you're just adding them. So then once you've brought them in, then when you're here and you're in a job, so I'm just going to go to this job, then you can highlight all the images, and you can go up to your photo. I never know where this one is. I think it's in photo. Rename. I always just click on the so if you hit function F2, it just opens rename. So I never know where that is. It might be library. There it is, rename photos. So it's just F2, and on a Mac you have to push the function key to get the F keys to work. So rename photos, and then just rename them after you've done the selections. You can rename them totally fine. Plus, you have plenty of control over them here to do the renaming. So, and as a bonus, when I hand them off to the client, if I have 20 photos and they're named 1 through 20, the client has no idea that I didn't just shoot 20 images. I mean, they kind of know in the back of their head, but they're not looking for number 3 when I shot, you know, 1 through 40 and then I deleted some in the middle, and then all of a sudden I have these gaps in the naming structure. It's better to just have, if I have 20 images, I should have 1 through 20 so that they have no way of thinking, oh, I'm missing one. I don't want people thinking I'm missing a photo. So, all right, that's the answer to that question. Any other questions, Burton?
Yeah, we have quite a few.
Okay.
But first of all, I just wanted to check in. So it looks like somebody is, looks like Marcy is wondering if anybody else is having trouble with the visual. I'm checking in on my end, and it looks like everything is fine.
That's a good housekeeping rule. So I took some screenshots. If you are seeing kind of pixelated and you aren't seeing it very well, you're probably looking at a YouTube like 480 or 720 in resolution. So let me show you this. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a little gear. So that gear box right there at the bottom of the player, when you click on it, there'll be a quality option. And you see that I have mine at 1080p. That's HD quality. That's as high as it goes on YouTube, which is unfortunate. But then and you can see it here. So when you click on that, it'll roll up and you'll have all of these options, and you'll probably find that yours is at like 480 or 720. Click on 1080 and force it to be 1080p, and then you'll be able to see the highest resolution that's possible, and it'll clean it up quite a bit. But if you don't change your settings here, then you're going to get what you're going to get, because it's feeding you worse quality. So we're feeding you a decent 1080p signal, which is the best that we can do on YouTube. But it also means that we can allow everybody who wants to be here, and it's going to be it's being recorded right now. And so as soon as this is over, if you have to bounce or if someone didn't show up, they can always come in later, because this is going to be the same link. So if you want to come in and watch it again or anything like that, it's just there. So there's a lot of advantages to YouTube, but it's also a pretty crappy, it's a free service. So they don't really care about giving you super good quality. So do you think, was that the question that was coming up?
She was just dealing with only seeing the title screen, but I just mentioned to reload if that's the issue.
Oh yeah, maybe reload. That's also an option.
Okay, but jumping into questions for you.
Yeah.
Thomas wants to know, I have developed presets from 2025. Not sure how to install the 6 new for this year. I'm not sure exactly. It's just a ~6.
Ask for Thomas, clarify that question a bit. I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not absolutely certain. I think what he's asking is that he has some older presets and he wants to install them in the newer version. So like, I think he was in version 6 of Lightroom, which is really old. And the Lightroom used those presets. They weren't .xmp presets. They were .lr template, or like, it was a very long name. And they didn't use XMP data to create the presets, but now they do. And so you can install those with no problem. You just have to install them. So like, if you want to install any preset, doesn't matter if it's an old preset or a new preset, what you need to do is go into the develop module. This is in Lightroom Classic. I'll show you how to do it in Lightroom desktop as well. But inside of Lightroom Classic, if you go to the preset area, so there's presets over here on the left-hand side. So there's the preset area. And if you click on the plus button and import presets, then you just go find those specific presets. Let me see, I think I have some presets on my desktop. Oh, these are profiles, but you would just click on the preset that you want to import. But you see how this is an XMP? So that's the new style of preset, but the old style can be imported as well. But what it's going to do is it's going to recognize that it's an old style of preset, and it's going to convert it to an XMP, and then it's going to install it. So that's how it does that. If you're trying to do a profile, then you would come over to the right-hand side and click on the profile browser. And once you're in the profile browser, then you can hit the plus button here and import the profiles there. And also be aware that you can manage profiles, because if you manage profiles, then you can go in and turn off all these horrible ones that come with Lightroom, because these are all crappy. Hopefully no one from Adobe is here watching this. I don't know who makes these, but it seems like they must be laughing when they make them. So, okay.
Thomas just clarified, saying this year's list has 6 new from last year. So
this year's list has 6 new from last year. Oh, there's the presets, like the new presets that came with Lightroom.
That would probably be my assumption, is that
I think that's
new ones
that may be what he's asking, is that there's some new presets that are being they're part of the Lightroom delivery. I don't know. I don't even pay attention to those because they're so awful. I never understood how they don't ship with better presets inside of Lightroom. I mean, maybe it's so that people like me can sell good ones, but I can't believe that they can't just make good presets at Adobe. I mean, if they asked, I would give them some, but they don't. So I don't know. They just ship with really bad presets. So anyway, okay, next question.
Okay.
And then we'll get to some new content.
All right, let me jump back to here. Okay, so Susan is saying, or maybe Suzanne, says Lightroom Classic synced photos are taking too much space. Can I use an external drive?
Yes, absolutely. So let me show you both places here because this is an important thing inside of Lightroom Classic and inside of Lightroom. So it doesn't matter which desktop client you use, you're still going to run into this issue. So this is a great question, Suzanne or Susan, depending on how you pronounce your name. So if you go to the cloud dropdown inside of Lightroom Classic, there's the synchronization, and you can see that my synchronization is happening. It's syncing, and I'm not paused, so I'm currently synchronizing. If I click on this little gear, it's going to take me to the Lightroom Sync settings. And inside of Lightroom Sync settings, I can specify a location for the synced images. Now you'll notice that mine are on my hard drive on this computer, because it's a laptop and I move it around, I take it with me, and I want those synced files to be with me all the time. If you are willing to travel with a hard drive that you plug in every time you open up Lightroom, then you can certainly put them on an external drive. Or if you're on a desktop computer, you can certainly put them on an external drive. Just choose the new location here. And also, as a bonus, click on this Use Subfolders Formatted by Capture Date, and then choose a reverse date format like this. And that allows every day the new photos that are coming in are organized by date, so it's really easy to find them when you're looking for them. So this is, I think, really important. So make sure that you go choose the actual location. Otherwise, it just gets put inside of your Pictures folder next to the Lightroom folder. So it's always going to be in the Pictures folder if you don't choose where it's going to go. So that's a pretty important thing. Now, if you are in Lightroom Desktop, so the same thing exists, but now it's every image that comes down, except you have some choices. So if you go to the Preferences menu, there's less preferences inside of Lightroom Desktop, but you'll notice that you have this cache area, and you can choose how much cache you're willing to use. So you could take it down to a minimum or 1 gigabyte. So if like you had a little MacBook Air or something like that, you could take it down to minimum and it would almost use no space, and it would only show you previews of the images. So that's a really good way to use a very small laptop. And then you can also say store all the smart previews locally so that you can always work on them even on an airplane, or store the copy of the originals. And these two are better for a desktop computer with plenty of space, and you can choose where you want those originals to be stored. And you can just choose like an external hard drive and it would store them all. So you could have a 96 terabyte hard drive that stores everything if you want. And that's a perfectly good way to go. Now, with that all being said, let me explain to you how I do my, because I use both. I use Lightroom Classic and I use Lightroom Desktop. So Lightroom Classic is the workhorse, and that's the place where everything goes. So I put everything into Lightroom Classic first. That way, when I synchronize it to the cloud, it's only sending smart previews up to the cloud, because smart previews don't cost you anything in the cloud. It's free free storage. So I could have 100 gigabyte cloud storage instead of like terabytes, and it wouldn't fill it up at all. So I can just send everything. I could send 40,000, 100,000, 400,000, a million photos into the cloud, and it wouldn't cost me any space at all because it's coming from Lightroom Classic. If I reversed it and I did everything from Lightroom Desktop first, then all of those would cost me. Everything I put into the cloud would cost, because it would be the original images. So Lightroom Desktop sends the originals up to the cloud. Lightroom Classic sends smart previews to the cloud, so I don't get dinged. And so when they go up to the cloud and they come back down, Lightroom Desktop is only getting the previews, those smart previews coming down. And because I have it set up here to be only 50 gigabytes of space, and I don't have any of these things checked, it's actually operating in a very minimal space. And Lightroom Desktop is just my way of peeking into the cloud without having to go up to the cloud. And it is just pinging the cloud whenever it needs to pull new previews down. And then I can work inside of Lightroom Desktop for its advantages, because it has some advantages. But most of the time I'm working in Lightroom Classic. And then when Lightroom Classic can't do something because it's limited in its scope, then I can go to Lightroom Desktop, and because it's always talking to the cloud, then I can use some of its AI features that are more, I don't want to say robust, because it's not really robust. It's just more AI driven and has a lot of visual searching features, so that I can, if I use the two together, I'm much more nimble. So that's how I work it.
And Suzanne was just asking, I believe I answered the question, but she said this would be done on an iPhone as well, which I'm assuming is talking about Lightroom Mobile.
Yeah.
And I believe that the answer to that is that your smart previews are syncing as well.
Yeah, everything's syncing to the, everything's syncing to your phone, your iPad, your Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic. It's all syncing back and forth. It's just a question of what you put into the cloud. And every device has the ability to choose what it allows to come down to the phone. So you can tell the phone to do the same caching situation where the phone will only take smart previews and it won't take them all. It'll just kind of do it as needed. Or you can tell it to bring everything down. Like, you get to choose that in the preferences of the phone and the iPad and Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom, well, not really Lightroom Classic. Lightroom Classic, if you take a picture on your phone and put it into Lightroom on your phone, the full resolution goes up to the cloud. Same with if you put photos into Lightroom Desktop, the full resolution goes to the cloud. And then when it comes down, the full resolution comes down to Lightroom Classic. So Lightroom Classic is unique in that it only sends the smart preview up, and therefore only smart previews can go down to the other clients. But all the other clients send the full resolution up, which means that Lightroom Classic is going to receive the full resolution images as a backup, basically. And so if I put a high resolution 60 megapixel raw image into Lightroom Desktop or onto my phone, that 60 megapixel goes to the cloud, and then it comes down into Lightroom Classic as a 60 megapixel full raw image, no degradation in quality. And so now I've got this 60 megapixel image on the phone or in Lightroom Desktop and in Lightroom Classic. The only caveat to that is if I told my phone and Lightroom Desktop not to store the original images, at some point when it needed the space, as soon as it started getting beyond its 50 gigabyte cache, it would eject that. And the only place that it would exist is the 60 megapixels would be on the cloud and it would be on Lightroom Classic, but it would not be on my computer in Lightroom Desktop. So hopefully that's clear. Okay. Since we're talking about syncing, this is where I'm going to tell you the coolest thing that exists in the new version of Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Desktop and on your iPad and on your phone the whole ecosystem just got a boost, and I'm I'm so happy. Actually, I'm mad. I'm happy and I'm mad because I'm happy that it happened, but I'm really mad because I've been screaming about this since Lightroom Desktop and the Lightroom Cloud and Lightroom Mobile ever started. Like from the very beginning, I've been asking for this and shouting and arguing about this feature, and it's taken, I think it's 10 years for this to happen. And it's astounding that it took 10 years for it to happen. It was a no-brainer, and yet took forever. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I have, we'll just start with these. Actually, hold on, I don't know if I have these in a collection. I don't. Okay, so let me go to a collection. So I'm gonna go to a collection of images from Prague. I think those will work out. Hold on, let me double check. I'm not showing you my screen for a moment because I need to make sure that these, yes, okay. So my images from Prague will work for this demonstration. Okay, so I'm in Lightroom Classic. You can see that I'm in Lightroom Classic, and I'm in a collection of Prague, images from Prague. So you can see that, do you see that square right there? So the XIR search, that square, see how it turns into a sideways lightning bolt when I hover? If the square is there, it's not syncing to the web. If the little lightning bolt is there, it is synchronizing to the web. So this collection is synchronizing to the web. And if you were watching on the Lightroom Summit, you remember I talked about when I import, as I import, I create a collection and I synchronize that collection to the web as it comes in. That way I don't even have to do this. They're just, you can see they're all, look at all these jobs that are already synchronized to the web. So I don't have to do that later. It's just done as it imports the images. So this Prague is synchronized to the web because it shows that little lightning bolt. So there are 130 images in a collection, and that collection is on the cloud. Okay, so I've got all these images, and you can see that if I'm just going to go to this second image. And in this second image, you can see that I've got some presets over here. This is Czech Republic, MZ Masterclass, MZ Ed Masterclass, Prague. Okay, so those are the three keywords that are on there. And I'm also going to add another keyword, arch, and I'm going to put cathedral, and I'm going to put woman and travel. So there's a lot of things I could put in there, okay? So I've added some keywords. The problem is that in the past, if you then, like these are all synchronizing to the cloud, and I was putting these keywords in, but the problem is for the past, 10 years or so, if you went over to your cloud, even though you had all these images in the cloud, you didn't have the keywords. And so like you can see, if I click on, I'm just gonna go to, say, this image, there's a bunch of keywords here. You can see those keywords are in there. But if I go to that same image here and I go to the keywords here, there are no keywords. So it's synchronizing the photo, it synchronizes the stars, the flags, the adjustments, everything except for words. and that flummoxed me. Like I could not understand that. There was no logic behind it for 10 years. No logic. Synchronizing all this data instantly, but not words, which arguably are the easiest thing to synchronize. So no words, but we now have the ability to do this. So if I go to this image, I just put in some extra words in here. So I have more keywords that were put into this image. And if I go over to Lightroom Desktop, which is getting its images from the cloud. So they all went up. So all the words that I just typed into that image went up to the cloud, and then they came down. And now you can see all of those keywords are in this photo. That is awesome. Because now, if I were to go, let me just go back to Lightroom Classic and just go to the grid. And I've got a bunch of keywords in all of these. So if you want to today get all of your keywords into the cloud so that they're useful on your iPhone and on your iPad and over on your laptop in Lightroom Desktop, all you have to do is highlight all of your images, and then you go over to the keywording area, and right at the very, very bottom of the keywording area is this new button that says Sync Keywords to the Cloud. If I highlight a bunch of images, the whole catalog if you want, and I click on that button, it's going to synchronize all of the keywords to the cloud. And it's not going to take very long to do it. So then if I go back to Lightroom Desktop, you're going to see keywords start to show up. So as I see there's more keywords. Clicking on things, this one probably still synchronizing, but those keywords are going to start to show up here inside of the keywords. Now, Lightroom Desktop uses them a little differently, and so you can just, like, if you want to get rid of some of them, you hover over them and then click on the negative, like it crosses them out, and they'll disappear. That's why they kind of hover red like that. But this is fantastic, and the reason it's so fantastic is that inside of Lightroom Classic, if I want to search a given collection or my entire catalog, and I go up to my text searching area, I can say, show me anything that has any searchable field, or I can specifically search for keywords that contain woman. And boom, there it is. There's the picture with a woman in it because I tagged it. So one of the keywords is woman over here. So I've got this photo, and it was easy for me to find it. However, if I didn't put that image or that word in there, and I was searching for a woman, because look, see, there's a woman there, and she's there, my wife's there. So there's all sorts of photos with people in them and women in them and girls, but I didn't keyword them. Well, if I go to Lightroom Desktop, not only is it going to search through the keywords, but I can type in woman. See how it's going to start? See, it found this one because there's a keyword, but it also found this one because there's an actual woman in it. And so it can find things like that based on visual searching. So now I've got keywording that's accessible up in the cloud, and I've got the visual search that's accessible in the cloud. Lightroom Classic doesn't have visual searching capabilities, has a little bit of facial recognition that really is not very good, but it doesn't have visual recognition of things. But Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Cloud and Lightroom Mobile, they all have visual searching capabilities. And now that your entire collection of keywords that are down inside of Lightroom Classic, now that those went up to the cloud, now the sky's the limit. It is not very hard to find a photograph because you can search for things that you know are keyworded, but you can also search for things that you know weren't keyworded. And so now, it used to be my methodology for keywording was specifically like, I would keyword things that were like bride and groom and boy and girl and dress and hat, and I would do a lot of that stuff. But now I don't keyword as much on the obvious, because the visual searching can find the obvious. Visual searching can find hat, dress, bride, groom, canyon, mountain, clouds. I don't need those things. So what visual search can't do is things like the client's name or the specific location that you're in, or it can't do like metaphoric stuff like death or birth, life or joy. It's not gonna see those things. And so what I will do is I'll add more metaphoric stuff and more specific things that are specific to that photograph and the mood in the photograph or the story behind the photograph. Those are the things that I want to tell. Like, there's no way that the visual search is gonna, like, I tried to search this one and this one by names, because these are all names of Holocaust victims, but it didn't know that these were names. It just knew that they were writing or, words. And so when I searched for words on a wall, I could find it, but it doesn't know that this is a Holocaust museum. It doesn't know that these are victims of the Holocaust. It doesn't know that they are names of people. And so the visual search can't go into that realm yet. So this is why I love this new release of Lightroom Classic, Lightroom Desktop, and all of the Lightroom clients. Now,
while we're on this topic, we
yeah,
should jump into a couple of questions
sure, go
about
for it.
this topic specifically.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people who have asked a couple of other questions as well, and we'll jump back to those a little bit later. I have those saved, but specifically talking about keywords, XR, and just the syncing of keywords.
Yeah.
First off, just to make sure, Marcy asked a little while back about XR for Lightroom Classic.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
2026 or 2027. Says, will it keyword existing photos in catalog? When I run it, what happens to keywords already assigned? I believe you touched on that, but just if you want to recap that real quick.
So there's actually two different plugins that are really quite useful for keywording. The first one is XR, and that resides, once you install it, it resides in the plugin extras. And you can see there's a whole bunch of XR search stuff here. So the first thing you have to do is you have to initialize the photos. So you highlight all your images in a given folder or even the whole catalog and initialize them. And basically XR goes in and reads them and puts values on them and stuff like that. Once they're initialized, then you can go in and you can add keywords. You can search specific aesthetic things. You can search for words, faces, keywords, etc. But you can also just transfer keywords. So you could just highlight them all and you can just transfer the keywords in. And it won't delete old keywords, but it will transfer the new keywords in. So it'll just add keywords to it. What I've found is that XR is very good at finding faces. It is much better at people searching and faces and stuff like that than Lightroom Classic is. So as a plugin, it's a very useful plugin for me to search for inside of Lightroom Classic where visual search doesn't really exist. It can do some visual searching, which is really good. It doesn't even need to, you just have to initialize the images and then you can visually search. But where it really shines is finding actual people. So you basically choose a person. So like you click on an image, any image, and then you go up to your plugins and then you say, I want to search for not faces, but people. So you click on that and it opens up a dialog box and said, which of these people do you want to search for? And you say, oh, I want to search for number 3. And so that's number 3 right there in the middle. And it's going to search for all the faces inside of the film strip, which is everything that's showing inside this folder. And when I hit start, it's going to just look for all of the images that have that face in them, and it's going to return it to this Exire search, right? And it's going to give you all of the, I searched specifically in this particular one for, I think, the bride here, and it showed me all the instances where it even shows me this one, which is just, she's in that photo, and so they found it. But she's in every single photo here. So this is really useful when you are doing weddings or parties or something like that. Very useful. It's not so great at keywording. I'm not a big fan of Exire as a keywording because it just puts a lot of useless keywords out there because I don't think it's as smart as it should be. However, there is another plugin. If you highlight all your images and you go again to the plugin extras and you go to MetaMagic. Let me zoom in there. So you go to MetaMagic and generate metadata with MetaMagic. You click on that and it's going to say, I'm ready to process 130 photos. It's going to take some credits from me because you buy credits, and then it's going. And it is literally keywording these. And so sometimes it's exporting an image in order to make this happen. And so you'll get this, which is kind of a flaw in the program. Occasionally you'll have to like override this. So I just gonna skip that. And it'll ask it several times if you really want these images to be present or you want them to have the smart previews. And if they don't have the smart previews or they're not present, like in the folder and the hard drive's attached, then it'll sometimes give you that error. But it's going to go through and it's going to keyword 130 images. So if I go to the top here and click on this image, you can see this is what it did. Angel statue. I didn't keyword that. So I have no idea what this is. That must be the name of the actual statue. Cemetery. So it's smart and it's AI, so it knows. A lot of the times, like if the Eiffel Tower is there, it'll say Eiffel Tower because it knows that that's the Eiffel Tower. Or it'll know a very famous building, or it'll sometimes even know a body of water that it's seeing because it knows some of the things around it. Cemetery, climbing plant, common ivy. It does know like types of trees and things like that. Czech Republic, I put that one in, so it didn't overwrite that one. Evergreen, flowering plant, foliage, gravestone, graveyard. So like all of these things are useful keywords, but notice that it didn't get rid of any of my keywords. It just added keywords where I didn't have them. And so then as this is happening, because it's keywording them and it's just putting them into the keyword set, then if I go over to Lightroom Desktop and I go to this image and I go to my keywords, all of that same stuff is inside of there. So now I'll be able to search for English ivy as well because it knows, because the AI figured it out. And I can guarantee you that MetaMagic is better at keywording than Lightroom is at visual searching. So you'll get better keywords out of MetaMagic than you will get visual searches out of Lightroom. So Lightroom is a bit, it's fine, it's good, and it's useful, but it's not as impressive as MetaMagic. So I think it's worth having that plugin, and it's not a plugin that costs you money to buy the plugin. You just download the plugin and then just buy, like wait for a sale. If you go to the VIP information, I think it's just in the, it's just in the regular pamphlet from the show notes. So if you go to my show notes from the summit, there is like a 50% off coupon for MetaMagic. Go get it, buy a set of credits, and then just use those credits on portfolio stuff because that's what you're really going to be searching. That's how I do it. I don't do it to everything. I just do it to the stuff that's portfolio worthy so that I have really good keywords, especially if you're going to be adding them to like stock agencies, or if you're going to be putting them on a website that you want people to find your images, like on your blog or something like that. You want keywords, and you want good keywords. So, and you can, in the preferences of MetaMagick plugin, you can choose how many keywords you want it to add. 20, 15. I have it at 20, I think. 50 is the most it'll add, but that's too many. If you do 50, it starts adding, you know, really random things. Like it'll, on this image, it would go through and it would add like stone, and then it would add orange and yellow and blue and pink, and like it would start adding stuff because it doesn't know what to add. It'd just be like, I don't know, a box, whatever. So it just starts making stuff up after about 20 or 25 because it can't figure out what else to put on there. So that's the way keywording works. But it all stems around this idea that you have this interchange between Lightroom Classic, the cloud, and Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Mobile now, because the keywords go everywhere. So these keywording applications become even more useful because now you have this depth of understanding of what's in the images. And when you have keywords and visual searching, you can find pretty much anything, anywhere, anytime. You could be like, I have no idea where this image is. As long as you've put it into the cloud and you have some keywords. And now with Lightroom Classic, I just do like basic keywording for the whole job. Like this was all in Prague, it was on a workshop, etc. when I'm importing it. So you just do like something that covers all the images while you're importing it, travel, things like that. And then you do it in sections. Well, this section is architecture, and this section is portraits, and this section is etc. And then you know, go in and target some of them and kind of do the metaphoric keywords. And then if you want to use one of the AI features, whether it's Xire or MetaMagick, you know, go to town and let it keyword those. But if you don't want to use it, if you don't want to buy credits, or you don't want to buy, you know, Xire, that's fine. Just add enough keywords that maybe every photo has 5 or 6 keywords that describe what and where and how, so that you could find them as a group, and then the visual search will help take over from there. So it's super useful, and I'm super glad that Adobe finally did it. Just a little mad that it took them, you know, 10 years or however long to do it. Are there other questions, Britton?
Just 2 clarifying questions about synchronizing that came up earlier. Marcy again is asking, and Wenros, both kind of asking the same question, but a little bit different. So Wenros is asking, so Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Desktop keywords / people are fully synced, so changes in one are synced in both. And then Marcy is asking a slightly different variation of that. Once you find the woman in Lightroom, can you add that word to all of them at once? And will those keywords sync back to Lightroom Classic? So
yeah, that's a great question. So if I were, let's just show you this on, say, this set of images here. So let's just look and see what MetaMagick put in there. So MetaMagick put in things like jewelry, pocket watch, shop window, etc., right? So it put in a bunch of stuff in there. So it's pretty well keyworded. But if I go to Lightroom Desktop and I search for that same image. Oh, sorry. Sometimes I have to remember to switch over so you can see it. So let me show you that again. So these are window images here, okay? And all of the images here have some keyword tags, right? Quite a few. So they're well keyworded images. But if I go over to Lightroom Desktop and I go find those same images here, you can see that those images have keywords in them. But let's see what they don't have. I think that they don't have Mary. Yeah, it doesn't look like they have like religious type. Oh, religious figures. That's all it has. Okay, so now let's just do a search and see if we can find pray. There, see that? So that one, I searched for pray, but the pray is not in the keywords. It's the fact that it saw Mary praying. So now, and right now you only see the one, but all of these, so I guess you could say that this is kind of pray. And so maybe all of them, should get that pray keyword because you're in a cathedral. So let's just go with, this is also Mary. And so let's just go with all of the Marys here. So I've highlighted all of them. I'm going to go to the grid. They're all highlighted. Now I can add a keyword here and say Mary and pray. And it added, see this? This is applied, these are keywords that are applied to some. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of keywords. So not all the keywords have all of these. But this one says applied to all. You can see that Mary is applied to all and pray is applied to all because I just applied it. And now those are going to get synchronized back down to here. If I go and look in here, then I'm going to find, where are you, Mary? Let me get out of there and come back to it. Well, it's not there yet, but it will be there. It'll get there shortly. It just has to synchronize. And sometimes you actually have to just go away from the images, and then that's when they start synchronizing, because they don't synchronize until you lodge that I'm done with those images. Because otherwise it would be synchronizing all the time. Every time you slid a slider, it would start synchronizing. So Lightroom only synchronizes once you leave the image. So now probably if I go back here, I'll probably find Mary in there somewhere. Come on, Mary, where are you? Well, have patience, it'll get there. Just have to wait for it. I'm not sure why it's not synchronizing just yet.
While you're waiting for that to synchronize, just clarify on Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Desktop keywords. The changes, it syncs between both Lightroom Classic and Desktop, correct? Just to clarify on that for Winrose.
Yeah, it syncs both ways. So it syncs from Lightroom Classic up to the cloud, then down, and then it synchronizes the opposite way as well. So it's always going to synchronize both ways. It just depends on how quick or how slowly it does it based on, oh, maybe it's this one. Oh, that might be why. I was looking at the wrong one maybe. Oh, there it is. There's Mary. I was looking at the wrong image. So Mary is right there and pray is right there. So it did synchronize, it just synchronized to the wrong. I didn't have this one, I had this one. So, okay, any other questions that are?
Yeah, these ones are real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They're from the first batch of questions. Amy, back towards the beginning, asked, are you still using multiple catalogs for your wedding clients?
I never used multiple catalogs. I always used one catalog. So I can describe that. So Lightroom Classic is best. Well, Lightroom Classic can only synchronize one catalog to the cloud. So whatever catalog you have synchronized to the cloud, that's it. One catalog. And then all of that goes up to the cloud, and then all of that goes down to Lightroom, mobile, Lightroom desktop, so it synchronizes everywhere. But because only one catalog can synchronize to the cloud, I would much rather have all of my images inside of jobs. So I just go in, each one of my images or each one of my jobs is in a folder with the job name, and those jobs are all together, they live together. And my portfolio lives in the same catalog. Everything's in the catalog. And so the catalog is like a train station. And so jobs come in, or photos. If you're not a professional and you're just running around taking pictures and you travel and so Prague is your job. So just think of jobs as any group of photos. So you have your images come in from Prague, you work on them, you throw away the stuff you don't like, you keep the stuff you do like, you add keywords to them, you adjust them and all that kind of stuff. And then once you're done with them, you take the ones you really love, you put them in your portfolio, and then that folder of other stuff that you don't necessarily need can leave the train station. So you can then say, okay, I'm no longer doing this shift ski wedding, so I can right click this and I can export it as a catalog and make it its own train, and then the train leaves the station. And that can go to an archive drive. And now it is its own catalog for that client, but you keep the ones you like for you, and the rest of them, and then the entire job goes out. So your client has a backup on a hard drive somewhere with a catalog and all the images, and you have kept the ones you really love as a duplicate on your catalog. So you can see here inside of Lightroom Classic, you can see that this is my, these are all my folders, my jobs, and each one of them is its own train. And then I can right click it, I can export it as a catalog, and then it becomes its own job, its own catalog later. But they always come in initially to one catalog. That way it's all synchronized to the cloud. That's the only way I can do the cloud thing. So you have to have them all come into the same catalog.
And on the topic of catalogs, continuing, Phyllis wanted to know how to transfer old catalogs into her new Lightroom setup, because her specific question says, I have old Lightroom catalogs from external drives of 13 years. I had an older Mac laptop. Now, how can I get all my photos from these onto this new Lightroom on this computer?
So that's a pretty easy thing to do. All I need to do is just go to the File menu and import from another catalog. Click on that and then go find the catalog, wherever that happens to be. And the catalog's going to look like this. And usually it's in a folder that has a whole bunch of like helper files to it. Click on that catalog and hit choose, and it's going to open up a dialog box that looks a lot like an import box. And it's just going to say, do you want to move these in? It's going to ask you some questions, but mostly the questions are, do you want all the information, metadata, adjustments, all that to come in? You just choose yes on all of that, and then hit go. And it's going to, it's not moving them into the it's just basically saying, okay, here's a catalog full of data and references about photos, and this is the catalog we're currently in, and it's just merging those two databases together. That's all it's doing. The photos themselves stay wherever they were. And so this all presumes that when you open that old catalog, it knows where the photos are. So that's important. So the first thing you should do is go to the catalog that you want to import into the master catalog, and you go to that catalog and you open up that little baby catalog and say, do you know where your photos are? And if it doesn't know where the photos are because things have gotten moved around, you need to then right click the folder and say find the missing folder. So you're gonna do this. So you right click a folder and you say find the missing folder, because it'll have these question marks on it. and then you tell it where that folder is. And then once it no longer looks like this, but it looks like this, where it's all, the photos are actually found, it knows where they are, then you can close the catalog, that little catalog, and then you can import it into your current catalog. But you have to make sure that your catalog knows where the images are. This one, you know that, so the reason it doesn't know where any of these folders are is because I just don't have the drive plugged in. And so that's fine, because I can work on these images, because every image that I have in my catalog has at least the original, if not original and Smart Preview attached. So even if I'm looking at images from here, from New York, it doesn't know where the folder is. So I'm looking at images from New York. It doesn't know where this folder is. But if I go to the images here, you can see that there's a Smart Preview. And so that Smart Preview allows me to work on the images even though I don't have the drive plugged in. And so if I just plug this in, it would know where they are. So there's a difference between I don't know where the images are because you haven't plugged in the drive, and if you have the drive plugged in and it still doesn't know where the images are, now you've got an issue you've got to deal with, which is just this disorganization. So first, make sure you're not disorganized when it comes to the individual catalogs that you're going to import. Once you know that those catalogs actually know where their stuff is, then feel free to go to the file, import from another catalog, and it will then ask where that is. You click on it, hit choose, and then just answer the questions in the import dialog box.
And follow up on that same question, Phyllis is again asking here, what does it say here? Would I have to find old catalogs on my computer? Or my assumption there is saying, does she need to go find those catalogs, or can she just proceed with using just the photos themselves and just recatalog?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's really two ways to go about that. If I knew that I had, let me show you this. Okay, there's a setting in Lightroom Classic which is in the preferences. It's in the catalog settings, and in the catalog settings is this option: automatically write changes to the sidecar files, XMP and ACR. XMP sidecar files are the old tried and true metadata for like adjustments and flags and stars and all that kind of stuff. Once they started making a lot more masking things inside of Lightroom, they needed to separate the mask from the regular XMP. So they have an ACR sidecar file that holds all the intense masking information. So there's two sidecar files to every photo, and that helps it to be a little bit more nimble. So if you have that checked so that it automatically writes those sidecar files, then the information for your adjustments is not only inside of Lightroom, which is where the truth resides, but it also wrote a backup of the information onto the files. If you've always operated that way, then you don't necessarily need the catalog. You just need to go to the disk and just click on the disk and say import this entire disk, and it'll bring everything in, and any adjustments you've ever made inside of Lightroom are just going to come in because you've been always automatically writing those. If you didn't do that, then you're better off importing each individual catalog to pull them all in. The other option is you could go to all of your other catalogs and you could highlight them all and hit Command S or Control S to save everything. So if you went in and just highlighted everything and hit Command S, it would save the metadata, or you can go to the metadata menu and you can say save metadata to files. So if you go to your old catalogs and just open each one, save the metadata, close it, open each one, save the metadata, you could do that. And then you could just, instead of waiting for each import, you could just highlight a hard drive and you could import the entire hard drive because all the metadata would be written as sidecar files to the actual files. As a bonus, if you do the save metadata files, if you're working on a DNG, a TIFF, a PSD, or a JPEG, it will inject all of the metadata into the file itself. So it'll inject keywords and titles and stars and flags and stuff into the file. It won't inject things that the JPEG doesn't have a space for. For instance, if you masked a JPEG or if you adjusted a JPEG, it's going to have to then write an XMP or an ACR sidecar file to that. But save metadata files will inject any keywords, any like words, and any stars, that kind of stuff, into the file itself, TIFF, PSD. But if you do adjustments, it has to create a sidecar, and it'll make a sidecar for that.
All right, and then one question that's pretty quick, just yes or no, your opinion on something. Donna wants to know, do you think that Adobe will ever incorporate syncing smart collections?
I don't think so. The reason I say that is because Adobe is reticent to do things that could take people by surprise. And so, like, someone could conceivably make a smart collection. And for those of you who don't know what a smart collection is, if you go down to the collections and click on plus, you can create a smart collection, and then it's just a series of rules. And so I could conceivably create a smart collection that show me all the images that have greater than 1 star and then hit create. And if I did that and they had a little checkbox here that allowed us to, sync it to the cloud, I could have, 100,000 images that are 1 star and above, and I just didn't know that I was going to have that many images. And then all of a sudden 100,000 images are going up to the cloud and, burning up space or whatever. If they're coming from Lightroom Classic, obviously they wouldn't burn up space because it's just smart previews going to the cloud, and those don't count against you. But it could, I don't know, you could take a week to synchronize that. So I don't think they'll ever do that. There are plugins, though. If you go to, I think, Jeffrey Friedel, I think that's how you say his name. Anyway, if you search plugins for Lightroom Classic plugin sync smart preview or smart collections, there's a plugin that you can make a smart collection, and then that plugin will look at the smart collection and constantly automatically ingest those images once every so often into a regular collection that's being synced. And so there is a way to do it. You just have to get the plugin, and then it would just constantly drip them in. So it's possible.
Okay, and then Winrose, for now, is our last question from the chat, but she has 2 that are about the same idea, which is, A, can you speak more about your archiving system? And then a sub-question to that is, do you have multiple external hard drives to store photos from your master catalog?
Okay, yeah, this is a good... Okay, so I'm going to just show you a drive. There. So every year gets a hard drive like this. It's just a raw hard drive. And then they just go into hard drive boxes. So they're just little anti-static hard drive boxes. And I have a... Hold on, let me see if I can get this. I'm going to have to unplug it, but it's fine. Okay, so I've been using this particular toaster. See, it looks like a little toaster. And I've been using this particular toaster for like 10 years, I think. Actually, no, because this is USB-C. I used to have like USB 3. I used to have a FireWire one. So they've just kind of grown through the years. So, but I've used this basic style of toaster for, I don't know, since 2009 or something like that. I've been using something like this and this. And so what I do is I think the first drive I had is 2005. So this is the system I've employed since 2005, and it works really great. Anytime I'm archiving something, I just simply take this drive and I plug it in to this toaster, and you can see, can you see that? So you just plug it into the toaster, and if it's plugged in and turned on, then this lights up and it just is on your computer. And then this is just basically a, you know, this one's 4 terabytes, is it? No, 8 terabytes. So they just get bigger as they go. I don't think you can get a 4 terabyte anymore. I think you can get 5 is like the lowest you can get. But I will just, when I do the export, so when I go here and I'm done with this job and I right click it and I say export this collection as a catalog. Oh, sorry, this is a collection. But if I export this folder as a catalog, and make sure that the folder is actually connected. So I would need to connect this drive. But you right click it and say export this as a catalog. And then I'm going to point to this drive. And it's just going to export everything as a catalog. And let me show you what the dialog looks like. So if I go here and I right click this folder and I export it as a catalog, and then I'm going to choose a place to go. And right now I don't have any place for it to go, so I'm just going to choose a random drive. But I would choose the archive drive, which would be this drive. Okay, so this is 2023, so it would be going in the drive for 2023. And then I would just put in the name. So you would literally name it the same thing it is here. So whatever the name is here in the job is what you're going to name the catalog here. And then you're going to export the negative files, and you're going to build the included smart previews. So like if you check all this stuff, it's going to literally take everything that's in that job. Oh, sorry. I always forget to do that. So in here, I'm going to name it. Whatever the name is here of the job is going to be the name that I put in as the save as. And then I'm going to check all 3 of these options here so that when I hit export as a catalog, all the information goes from where it is on my current working drive and it copies it all onto this drive. Once it's copied, and you can just shut this down, eject the drive and shut it down and pull it out and put it in your cupboard, put it in, I have a Pelican case that has a bunch of spots for these drives, and I just put it in there and store it until the next time I'm archiving stuff, and then I pull out the archive. Now the question might be asked, why would you buy 1 drive per year? And the reason for that is that I don't want to ever fill this drive up and not know, is the job for November 2023 on the 2023 drive, or is it on the next drive because I filled this one up? So then it gets confusing as to where things are. So I want to know that everything from 2023 is on this drive, and 2024 is on the next drive, 2025 is on the next drive. Now, I'm a professional photographer and I shoot a lot of images, I shoot a lot of work, and so I need to have, A, I need to have it organized so I can find it, and B, I'm shooting that much stuff. Whereas if, I think in the last 3 years I've shot 200 terabytes worth of stuff. And so you have to have enough drives. But if you are photo enthusiast, you're a travel photographer, and you're not taking as many images, well, then maybe you have a drive that's going to be for 2020 through 2025. You know, an 8 terabyte will fill up in that time. And so you just label it, this is these 5 years, or these 4, or these 3 years, or whatever seems to work for you. And you can just keep filling it up, but don't fill it all the way up, right? Go buy another drive and start at a rational time frame so that you can say, everything from this section of my life is here, everything from these years is here, so that you know where to go. You don't have to like question and plug in 5 different drives to try and find it. You just know, I shot it in 2023, so it's on this drive, because that's 20 through 25. So anyway, this thing's super cheap, and it's an easy way, and the least expensive drives you can get are bare drives, rather than buying, you know, a housed drive. So if you go buy, you know, drives that have a housing to them like this, now you're paying for the drive and the housing. So it's just cheaper to buy one of these and then put your archive on it. Now keep in mind that all of your favorite images, your portfolio worthy images, are going right here inside of Lightroom. So because you're copying everything out to this external catalog, that means that all your favorite images that you want to keep can stay here, because once you've copied it out and you've archived it, you can delete anything you want from here with impunity. Just whatever you don't like, just delete it, because you've already archived it. And so now these are just for you, and you just keep them as an archive, not as an archive, as a portfolio of all of your images. So once you've archived, once the train left the station, then everything that's left inside of Lightroom in the main catalog here is yours to do whatever you want with. You can delete it, you can move it, you can save it in different folders, whatever you want. Just organize it however you want your portfolio organized. Now you don't even need to keep it in job folders if you don't want. You could say, oh, I'm going to put all portraits in a big portrait folder, because you archived the original, you know, task, or the original job, or the original travel. So now you can just do whatever you want with the images, because this is now your portfolio. So just have a folder called portfolio, and then just start putting stuff in there and organizing the portfolio differently than your individual jobs. And you can see that in this, see how I've got a jobs folder, but then you can have, like up here, you can say, oh, these are weddings, travel and landscape, theatrical, senior portraits. You can organize them however you want, but you have a folder that's jobs, and then it's all like the jobs that you do. And then when you're done with them, you can get rid of these jobs in favor of something more to your liking, however you want to organize them. Yeah? Okay.
And then, Winrus, I just wanted to make sure you asked afterwards, after you export folder as a catalog to archive, do you then delete from the main catalog? Did that get clarified for you?
Yeah, that's pretty clarified, because you're copying all the images to this archive. So now you can do whatever you want. You might delete them, you might not. You might delete the whole job because you hated it and you thought it was horrible, but you just made money doing it. So delete the whole thing, get rid of it. Don't show it to people. Just because you shot it doesn't mean you need to show it to everybody. In fact, I wish the world, I wish more photographers would stop showing stuff that they shot and only show the stuff they love, because there's too many photographers that are just willing to show everything. And so it's, Cartier-Bresson said it best when he said that showing your contact sheet, which for those of you who are younger, it would be this, the grid is your contact sheet. But Cartier-Bresson said that showing your contact sheet is like taking your pants off in public. So like, you shouldn't want to show people your contact sheets. You should want to only show them your portfolio worthy stuff. And people have a pretty low bar for what should make their portfolio. And I would suggest that if you wanted to not be a better photographer, but if you wanted to be seen as a better photographer overnight, say tomorrow you want to wake up and be seen as a vastly better photographer than you're seen as today. All you have to do is go to your portfolio on your website and delete 50% of all of your images tonight. And tomorrow, when someone looks at your photos, they will think you're a better photographer because you have less crap in the portfolio. So we all put too much stuff. My dad used to call it we had a lot of brothers, so there's 7 boys and 1 girl in my family. And my dad used to say about some of the kids that we had alligator mouths and hummingbird brains. So we were just like talking a lot, but we didn't have the brains to back it up. And so that's a lot of what people do is they spew out all these images, but they don't have great images. And so you'd be better off choosing less images that you know are really good instead of trying to make it up in volume. So you've heard the old story about the guy that's selling, watermelons or whatever, and he's selling them at a loss, right? He's buying them at $1 and selling them at, 50 cents. And he tells the other farmer, it's okay, I'll make it up in volume, right? So you don't make it up in volume. Adding volume to your portfolio doesn't make you look better, it makes you look worse. So if people got that through their head, I think they would be seen as, and probably actually become better photographers too, because they'd be making those decisions in their head as to what not to show. And by making the decision in your head as to what not to show, you're actually becoming better as a photographer because you're training your mind to see certain things and to grasp what is good and what's not good. So it's a good idea. It's a good idea to go through your images and delete stuff on a regular basis. So.
All right, new topic. Amy,
by the time, what time? We're 6:20.
6:26.
Okay.
So.
All right. Go ahead.
New topic is, could you give a rough description of how you use star ratings, flags, and color labels for organization?
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. So everybody should know this, but as you are looking at your photos, you have the grid can be seen if you go to view and you go to grid style. You can do compact or expanded. So if you're compact, you don't see as much information, and then I like to do expanded because then I can see names and flags and stars and color ratings. And so the stars, so for me, a flag means somebody can actually see it. So if it's flagged, the client or the public could see this image. If it's rejected, it's gonna go away, but I don't use reject in the same way that other people use reject. So flag for me is somebody can see it. Not flagged means no one's ever gonna see it, because it's basically a reject. If it's unflagged, at the end of the day, it's a reject. Reject is what I use for problematic photos. So I don't reject something because I don't want it, because it already knows I don't want it because I didn't flag it. So if I am looking through my images, I'm going to hit P for pick on anything I want, and then I'm not going to click anything for the things that I don't want, so they know that they're rejected by virtue of the fact that I didn't pick them. The only time I spend the energy to add a flag, a black flag, an X, to an image is if there's a problem with the image. Why is it out of focus? Why is it, especially if I have an assistant working with me and I want to train the assistant or something like that, I'll hit the X key, because now I need to, not only is it not going to be seen, but I need to figure out why the problem existed. And so it allows me to research a problematic lens, able to research like, why did that exposure go weird? Was there a flash issue? What? So I don't want to research it right then and there. So I just hit X, which is the reject. And then I just sort by rejected and look at them and do my research. So that's the only time I use that. So flag is going to be seen, unflag is actually rejected, and then the reject or the black flag is you better figure out what's going on with this. It's a problem. Stars is just guttural reaction to images. 1 star, I kind of like it more than just it's okay. And then 5 stars is I really, really like this image, or the client really, really likes these images. And so if the client, if I usually don't give it a 5 star, I usually go 1 through 3 stars for my, level of interest in the image. And then when I'm in with the client and because I use Lightroom to show the client the images, and they really like an image, then I'll give it a 4 or a 5 because that's they get the final say on them. And so I'll use 4 and 5 to notate that they really like those images. So if there's a 5-star image, that's really the one that I'm going to be retouching and sending out to the client. So that's how the stars go. And then colors are really actually specific to uses. So like for instance, red would mean I've got some kind of thing to do with these images. There's something needs to be done with these images. Maybe I need to do some transformation because it's like for instance here, this is a good example. So these are red because there's certain things that I want to do with these images. For instance, on this image, you can see how it has that, it's kind of parallaxing in, so I'm going to want to straighten this. So then I'm going to go into the transformation and I'm going to fix the image. So I'm just going to do this and that. There. See, I wanted to fix that, so I marked it as red so that it would remind me later to fix that. So anytime that there's a red, it means fix it. Green means it's a go from the client. Let's see. Yellow means I'm waiting on a choice. So like I just have like very specific color assignments for things that need to be done. So you can just, and sometimes they're flexible too. Like if I don't need those color labels for that, I can use them for something else as well. But I use color labels more. I use them less in the actual image side. I use them more on the folder side. So I love the fact that I can come into a folder or a collection and I can right click it and I can change the color label on it. Because red to me on a folder means urgent. Yellow means I'm waiting. Green means it's time to go. Blue means it's done, like I'm finished with the job. And purple means I've done everything that needs to be done with this. I've archived it, and so I could delete it if I wanted to without worrying about what the status is. So purple means this thing can go away, or I can keep it, I can do whatever I want with it. Blue, I'm done with the job, but I haven't exported it yet. Green means time to deliver. Yellow means I'm waiting on someone to tell me which images they want. And red means this is brand new job, you need to get it done. So, and you can see that here. So you just simply right click your folder, you go to add color label, red, yellow, green, blue, purple, or none. And you can do the same thing with a collection too. So collections or folders, either way. But this is really good because then I can just say, oh, this one needs, and see how that comes up red. And then if I want, I can go up to the search bar here and click on it and say, only show me red. And it's going to show me there's nothing red there, but there's a red there. And these are all collections. So it's going to show me the things that are red, which means it's going to show me these are the jobs that aren't done that need to get done. Or I could, if I searched for, yellow, then it would tell me which ones am I waiting on so I can follow up with the client. So it's really actually quite useful to use the color labels here on your folders. Love it. That's been a game changer for me, because that's my to-do list. So I've got everything in a job folder. So you can see every single job is its own unique folder, the date that it was shot. You can see that there's the client name. This is what it is. So date, name, what it is. And then if I right click it and I give it a color label, then I know where it is in the process. And it's really easy for me to just say, show me all the red ones. And then I can see, oh, there's 12 jobs that need to get through. So that is super critical to the success of your efficiency, is having like this organized structure. And Lightroom is a really, really good to-do list. So that's how I use the color labels mostly.
Quick question: do you bring many photos into Photoshop, Phyllis?
Not really. And actually, so Photoshop used to be the place that I went to retouch, blemishes and stuff. But Photoshop has kind of lost that position in my world. I use it for very, very specific things. Like, for instance, if I really, really need to go in and, there's like a bunch of wires and it's just going to be a painstaking process inside of Lightroom, then I'll go into Lightroom or Photoshop. Or if it's, things that are just painstakingly difficult. But for retouching, now I just use Evoto, because it's better than Photoshop. It's funny because Photoshop has AI tools in what they call neural filters. So if you go up to the filter menu and go to neural filters, there's a whole bunch of like AI type filters, and one of them is retouching. And it's comical because it only retouches the face, not the neck, not the hands, not the shoulders, just the face. And so if you have a person who is, let's say they have wrinkles, or let's say they have like lots of acne, they're a senior and they have lots of acne, and then they have acne on their shoulders, or they have acne on their neck. It only cleans up their face, and it doesn't recognize that there's any other skin on the body. And so I can't imagine, like, if I were a boudoir photographer, and like you want to like clean up all the skin or whatever, you just perfect face and then everything else would be bad. So it's really dumb. So Photoshop is kind of problematic, and then it's just this old clunkier tool that has, like, they keep adding stuff to it, but they don't really get the idea that people just want a faster solution. So Evoto's come along and done a great job. Like, as long as you don't go overboard with it, it'll clean up and remove the blemishes. And so I'll just highlight an entire, wedding portrait session and run it through Evoto, and it'll just remove all the blemishes and most of I kind of do like 50% of the flyaway hairs and try and keep it fairly, real. But it gets rid of shine on faces and stuff like that, and especially glare in glasses is great as well. So it's funny that Lightroom and Photoshop and all, Adobe has decided, oh, let's get rid of glare. So like this is a great example here. So if I go to this image, where are you? There. So I can go to this image here, and it's got this glare on the window, and I can go to the removal tool, which is this up in the top middle of all the tools is the remove tool, and inside of it is the distraction removal, right? And one of them is reflections. And so I can apply the reflection removal. So I'm just going to hit apply. It has to go through this whole thing to get rid of the reflection. But it's pretty amazing. Like it just removed the reflection. It's incredible. And then you can choose how much of that reflection you want. So like I only want a little bit of the reflection, or I want to see what was reflecting and I don't want to see what was behind the window. So I can be like, what was behind me, and I can see I'm looking at the frames of the door or the windows behind the photographer now. And so it's really quite impressive that it does it. But you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't remove glare from glasses. So you've got this amazing tool that most people that are photographing windows actually like the reflections. And so you, as a photographer, when you're looking at a window with reflections, you're actually enjoying the reflections and you're like using them to your advantage. So there's really almost no reason for this tool to remove the reflections from a window, because we all use them in street photography all the time. What would be useful is to be able to remove reflections from eyeglasses, but this won't do that. So Adobe has some problems in that they don't recognize the reason for the tools that they're creating. Whereas people like Avoto, they've actually figured out, hey, glass glare is a problem, and if we can just remove that with AI, it opens up a whole new world for me, because when I'm doing portraits and I have somebody that has really glary glasses, oh, that's a problem. But Avoto will just knock it out like that. Done. No more eyeglass problems at all. So I don't even worry about it. Like I position the lights as much as I can and try and get it to be like at the top or something like that. But after that, I don't worry about it because Avoto will just take them out. So my retouching is mostly done inside of Avoto, not inside of Photoshop. I just do specialty stuff inside of Photoshop. But here is one thing that you can do. And this is actually a really important one. This is actually quite important, actually. So like if I'm, say, let me find a good image for this. So if I want to, this will be good. So I'm looking at this image here, and I just want a little more space. And I think have I cropped this one? I've cropped some of these. Let me find one that okay, this will probably work. Okay, so I've got this image, and I want to do some kind of straightening on it, or I want to adjust it, like the cropping on it. And so if I go to the crop inside of Lightroom, I have fairly limited capabilities here other than just to crop it, right? I can constrain the crop, I can tilt it, I can, like all that kind of stuff, but I can't do a ton to the actual crop. And especially, see how close it is over on the left-hand side? And I want to, actually, this would be even better if I did it to, I just realized a really good use of this. There, this is the right one. Okay, so I reset the crop. So look at this. So I've got, I like the distance here, this window to here, but I don't like the distance of this window to here. I would prefer there to be a little bit more distance there. Plus, if I straighten the image at all, then everything gets too close to the images. And I like to, on really, very graphic images like this, I like to go in and do the upright, straighten, transform. And so I like to, transform it, which I've already done. You can see that I transformed that so that it was straight, got that straight, got the verticals straight, so that it's really graphic like this. But if I turn that off, you can see that I'm shooting up at the building. Well, the problem is that when you go into this guided upright, see how it ends up cropping into things? So I don't want to do that. I'm in a quandary though, because if I try and do the guided upright, I lose information. And I can't lose the information. So then I would have to go, if I want to do some kind of a generative expand, then I have to go into Photoshop to do generative expand, because Lightroom Classic doesn't have generative expand yet. And so I can't just generate wall inside of Lightroom, which bothers me to no end. But I know that I can do it inside of Photoshop in the crop tool there, because it'll just expand things automatically. But then I have to go into a TIFF. Now I'm no longer raw. You can see the problem here. So I have to choose, am I going to lock this into a non-raw format and not be able to really adjust it the way I want to later? Or am I going to just deal with the fact that I really want this to stay raw so that I can, play with it later? Well, I don't have to make that choice anymore, because I can go into Photoshop. So watch this. So if I, instead of doing the cropping right now, I'm going to crop this thing inside of Photoshop, but not really inside of Photoshop. I'm going to do it in Camera Raw. If I right-click this image and I say Edit In and I say Photoshop, oh crap, this is just the Smart Preview. Shoot. Okay, right-click this and show it in the library. Where is it? Oh, it's in, okay, hold on, I just got to find the drive. I guess this is a good lesson. So let's find the drive. Let me put my glasses on and find the correct drive. Where is this drive? Hold on, I gotta go look in my backpack and find my drive. Any questions while I'm doing this, Britton?
No, we've hit every question.
Okay.
Unless I've missed one, let me know, because I'm pretty sure I've got every single one.
There we go, found it. All right, it was just in my backpack. Okay, I'm gonna plug this drive in. I love these Blade drives, by the way. They're super fast and awesome. I love them. So let me eject this one. All right. Plug in PV. Okay. So now I will have, see that? They all came online, see that? So now there's no questions on there anymore. So now I can actually go to Photoshop, because I have the original photo there, the original and the Smart Preview there. Okay, so we're back here. There's the file. And if I right click it and I edit in Photoshop, it's going to create a non-raw image, a TIFF or a PSD or a JPEG for me to edit inside of Photoshop. So I can't do it that way. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click it and I'm going to show it in the Finder. There, it highlights it in the Finder for me as a DNG. Now I'm going to right-click it and I'm going to say Open With, and now I'm going to open it with Photoshop. And you could open it with Photoshop 2026, or I like to use Photoshop Beta. Photoshop Beta is better. It always has something new in it. So just, I hardly ever use Photoshop. I like to use Photoshop Beta, and it's available to everybody, so you might as well use it. Now, see what it did? Oh, hold on. So it opened this inside of Photoshop in Camera Raw. And you'll notice that it actually did the guided upright, because remember, I write all of the XMP sidecar information to the file. And so as a result of that, if I open it inside of Photoshop, and Camera Raw is reading it, it will read the sidecar file. So I'm going to go back to our crop, or not our crop, sorry, to our...
Quick interjection.
Yeah.
Wenrus is asking, is the drive you just showed called Blaze?
No, it's blade, as in like swing and cut something with a blade. They're SanDisk. SanDisk makes what's called a blade, and then it fits into little a card or a blade reader. And there are traveling blade readers, and then there are desktop blade readers, and so they're 20 megabits a second or 40. So they're pretty fast, and they travel pretty well. Okay, so let's see, where is this inside of? Where do they have it in here? Oh, I think they have it in their own spot. Where are you? There it is. It's in the crop. So this is how rarely I go to Camera Raw, but it's useful to go to Camera Raw. So inside of the crop area in Camera Raw is where you find the transformations. And so right now it's doing the guided upright, but we're going to turn that off. So now we're back to normal, and I'm going to reset the crop as well. So there, we reset the crop. Now, here's what we want to do. Because we are in Camera Raw, and Camera Raw is oftentimes the place they put the newest stuff, I have the ability to crop this photo and expand it while it stays raw. So it's pretty exciting. So I'm going to go up here to the top right. Oops. And you see this Enable Expand. So if I click on Enable Expand, and then I just pull this photo out a little ways from that wall, and a little out this way from that wall. That's it. So now it will expand to that. And so I can tell it to generate that expand, and it's going to build wall, build a ceiling, there it did it. So see how it built that? And I can kind of cycle through and see which ones it does better and worse. So I can just keep kind of, that looks pretty decent. Okay, so if I like that, then I can keep it, and it's still a raw image. That's the beauty of this, is this is raw, but it's generated. And so now I can go into the guided upright, and see, now I haven't lost as much information, and I can go through and kind of renegotiate this to make sure that it's really well seen. That looks good. This one looks a little off there. Okay, so now my guided upright gave me really square windows, but notice that I have more space over here, and it didn't crop off this one over here because it expanded the building a little bit. Now, I don't need the entirety of that building. I only needed part of that building. And so at that point, I can hit done, right? So I just hit done. It saved the information into that ACR file. So the sidecar file now has all that information. So now if I just go back to Lightroom and I go up to the, go into the library, and I'm still looking at this file, so I'm still looking at this image, and if I go to metadata, and I read the metadata from the files, there, see that? So now I have a new image that has, that's raw, so it's not a TIFF, it's still a DNG, still got all the raw data. I can still adjust it. Notice that all of my adjustments over here are the same, and I could, you know, go in and increase or decrease, and it's just acting like regular raw information. So I can play with this, add some clarity, add some texture, and then once I'm done with it, then I can go up to my crop tool. So now I'm in the raw crop tool inside of Lightroom, and all of this data is outside of the original crop. Now I can actually decide what my crop really should have been based on what I wanted to see when I took the photograph in the first place. There, I like that. I like that this is close, that's close. I'm going to center it a little bit better there. There, I like that. So now I'm going to get out of the crop. That's the way I want that photo to be. And it's still a raw image because I utilized both tools. So do I go to Photoshop? Yeah, for that. But I'm really not there for Photoshop. I'm there for some of the tools that they've hidden inside of Camera Raw. And they've only put them there because they're kind of working on them and perfecting them before they put them in all of the clients. And so it may be another year before you see that come to Lightroom or Lightroom Classic or any of those tools. Any other questions, or should I move on to another little feature?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, I've got another feature for you before we close up here. And this one's a pretty good one too. This one's really worth having. So I'm inside of a folder that has 1,260 images, but I don't think this is going to be valuable in this folder. But maybe if I go to like a wedding, maybe. Okay, I'm basically showing you stuff from a wedding that was in England and some travel that was in England. So I've got, and maybe this one might have some. Okay, so I'm looking at 3 folders all at one time.
Sorry, real quick before we
I need
dive into this.
Yeah.
Can you say the photo as a raw file?
No, Evoto does not work on raw files. Well, it works on raw files, but as soon as it does the retouching, it exports a JPEG, a TIFF, or a PNG. No, JPEG or a TIFF. It doesn't like save a raw. It's not a raw editor, even though it can look at a raw. Like you could skip Lightroom entirely and only use Evoto, and it would work on the raw files, and then it would edit them. But quite frankly, Evoto sucks at working on raw photos. It's not good. They haven't figured that one out yet. They figured out some amazing things for retouching photos, but they have not figured out raw editing. They don't have any idea what they're doing yet. So I've talked to them, but they don't know what they're doing yet. So I'm sure they'll get it. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But right now, they don't know what they're doing. They are amazing at retouching. So I would use them for retouching, but raw editing, it's not their thing yet. So,
will you give a quick, just like sentence on how you brought the camera raw edits into Lightroom? Ray Atmore is asking, how did you bring in the camera raw edits when you got to Lightroom?
I just clicked on the image that I knew I had just edited inside of Camera Raw, because if you right click that image and you show it in the Finder, you'll see that, well, this is a DNG, so all the information is inside of it. But if it was just a raw file, there would be like XMP and there would be CR or ACR sidecar files next to it. And so all you have to do is, once you come back from Camera Raw, it's going to have that information either in a sidecar file or it's going to write it right into the DNG. But Lightroom doesn't look at that unless you tell it to. So then you go up to the metadata menu and you read metadatas from file. So that's how you pull it back in. And remember, in order to go to Camera Raw, you can't right click and edit in Photoshop because it will create a TIFF or a PSD or a JPEG to go there. What you have to do is right click it, show it in the Finder, and then right click that and open with Photoshop. That's how it opens in Raw, in Camera Raw. I wish that you could right click here and say edit in Camera Raw. That would be wonderful, but I don't think that's ever in the cards. Okay, so here's this final tool that's probably the second best feature of the new Lightroom update, and I love it. I'm pretty excited about it because everybody needs this. And quite frankly, if you go to the library plugin and you have Xire, you can search for duplicates here, and it does a decent job at finding duplicates. But wouldn't it be nice if you could find duplicates just inside of Lightroom? Because Lightroom already knows how to find duplicates. It knows all the details about the photos. So if you go down to the toolbar, and if you don't see the toolbar, hit the T key and it pops up and down. So go to the toolbar, and down at the bottom where the faces are, so this is grid, this is loop, this is compare, this is survey, this is facial recognition, and then there's duplicate finder. And if you click on duplicate finder, it's going to say, do you want, you have to initiate it. You're going to say start finding duplicates, and it's going to start working, looking through all these photos, looking for duplicate files. And so it is detecting duplicates, looking for duplicates, and you're going to walk away from this. And at one point, you're going to come back, and it's going to have found all of the duplicate files in your catalog for you. And that is a game changer because there are so many of us that have like a JPEG and a PSD of the same file and a RAW and a DNG and like there's a whole bunch of different versions of the same file, and it knows it based on the fact that it is it was shot at the same time. It knows the date that it was shot. It knows the name of the file. It knows the serial number of the camera. It knows all that stuff. And so it's very easy for it to find all of the duplicates and kind of stack them. And then once it's stacked them, you can just highlight them and right click and say, remove all the duplicates, and it'll just keep the top of the stack. But that presupposes that you go through the stacks and say, which one of these do I want to keep? The one on the top of the stack, it'll keep. The rest, it's going to get rid of them. So that's a really useful tool, but it's going to take a long time for it to do it. So I'm going to pretend that we're not doing it. But notice that if I go back, even though I'm not in the duplicate finder area, it's still looking for them. See that? So it's still detecting duplicates right now. And I can pause that so that and then I can unpause it and then go to bed. But if I'm going to be working, I don't want to be doing this because it's searching and it's expending a lot of energy. So I'm going to pause it, and then but if I ever want to, I can go back here and see what has it found so far. Currently, it hasn't found anything yet, but it will find it sooner or later. All right, any questions?
There are no questions in the chat.
There are no questions in the chat. Well, you have a few minutes to ask a question and we'll answer the final questions. Otherwise, we're going to say goodnight and thank you for showing up. Thanks for going to the summit. Thanks for being VIP members. We appreciate it. That's how we can provide this kind of content, is people like you who pay a little bit to get access to the content. And so I'm happy to provide some of that extra to you because you put some skin in the game. So thank you. And also, before I go, while we're waiting for any questions, this is a really important thing for me. I am I'm on the cusp of something really big. And it is like my entire life's worth of effort and thinking and work and process. So I'm at the point where I've watched the way people are educated in photography, and it's always been a bit disappointing to see photography taught the way it is, especially at conferences and workshops and stuff like that. And so I am on the cusp of starting something new that is going to be a huge positive for the entire world of photography when it comes to learning. And so we want to create something very meaningful. So if you go to jaredplatt.com/waitlist, that'll tell me that you're interested in learning about it, and I'll announce it when it happens. There will be plenty of free things, and there will be plenty of opportunities for like even more in-depth education in the photography sphere. So you'll kind of have access to all of it. But I would love to tell you about it. We're still working on it. We're still building out. But this is the future of real photo education, the way it should be taught, the way I was taught by my mentors in university. And unfortunately, they're long since gone. And so it's time for me to pick up that torch. And instead of going and teaching in a university, my plan is to teach to the masses and give people the kind of education that I got that almost nobody gets anymore. So I have lots to say about it and lots of cool things to teach, but we're kind of building out the construct right now. So look for more of it. Please go to that website, jaredplatt.com/waitlist, and just fill in the form, and I'll send you an email when everything's starting to launch. So thanks for joining us here.
We got one question.
We really appreciate it, and it's been fun having you. What was the question?
Just one thing from Suzanne. Says, will the duplicates be deleted when they go into the cloud?
Anything. So the cloud is an interesting animal. Lightroom Classic, if Lightroom Classic has the file and you delete it from Lightroom Classic, it will delete it from the cloud. If Lightroom Desktop has the file and it deletes it, it will delete it from the cloud as well. The difference is that Lightroom Desktop, when it deletes it from the cloud, it can't reach into Lightroom Classic. Lightroom Classic is has a wall around it. It will not allow something outside of it to delete what's inside of it. And so your file will stay safe inside of Lightroom Classic. But if you're in Lightroom Classic and you delete something and it's on the cloud, it will go up into the cloud and delete it. And because all the other Lightroom clients are tied to the cloud, it will delete it from those places. So it's important that you understand that Lightroom Classic, if you delete something there, it's deleting it from everywhere. If you delete something from the other Lightroom clients like mobile and desktop, it won't delete it from Lightroom Classic because Lightroom Classic is the repository of truth. It's like protected. It's the grandfather. Nothing touches it. So that's important to understand. So if you are finding duplicates and then you use the delete the duplicates option, it will remove it from wherever it happens to be. So, yes.
All right.
Is that it?
That is it on the questions. Nobody else has put anything else there. So.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming. We appreciate you being VIP members. Appreciate you coming to the summit. It's fun. That's a good event. I like it. And hopefully, we will see some of you in person sometime around the world. And if you want to keep in touch, just write to support@jaredplatt.com. That's the easiest email to get me at. You can find me anywhere, Jared Platt. Just search Jared Platt on Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, Instagram, all the things. Just at Jared Platt is usually the way to find me. Just search for Jared Platt. I'm the only one. So thanks. See you guys. Oh, and remember, this is recorded. So this YouTube will be, this is where you'll find a copy of this. So if you want to come back and watch something, or if you want to send somebody to it, you're welcome to. I don't have any problem with a VIP member sharing it out to a friend. Feel free to do that, and give them the link and they can come and watch the recorded information. That's fine. We made it special for you guys because you get to ask the questions. I don't care who watches it at this point. It's good information, and hopefully lots of people get use out of it. So thanks, guys. We'll see you around the bend.